welcome to Dawn of the New Earth and happy Halloween. My name is Morgue. I'm an ex-Christian revealing hidden information to transform the world and consciousness. And today we are talking about vampires. Are vampires actually real? And this is actually very fascinating. The answer is probably not what you think it is. And so we're going to be exploring a lot of different ideas of vampires that actually exist today. And we'll even be doing a vampire test that you can take to see if you are indeed a vampire. But I think most interestingly, we're going to be taking a look at this secret order called the Kemetic Order of Asetian, which is actually extremely fascinating. So we're going to be taking a look at all this and more right now. It's going to be good, my friends. Are you ready? Are you ready to begin? Let's do it. As always, remember, if you enjoy my work, please like and subscribe and become a member. It helps out a lot. And you get access to our members only videos, our Discord server, depending on what tier you select. So just hit the join button below to see all the different tiers and levels. It helps out very much. And I want to also let you know that my 5th book is now available for pre-order, Psychogenesis, Self and Universal Transformation. This is one of my favorites. This goes into inner star actualization, which is about actualizing the self, hyper-awareness, which is achieving the highest level of consciousness, and will forming, which is about giving form to what you will, transforming your life, transforming the world, etc. So this is available for pre-order right now. I'm really excited about this one. It's one, like I said, one of my favorites. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, check out Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. That's book number 1. And you can get that as an audiobook as well. The links for all of that are in the description of this video. And you'll also find in the description of this video a link to my Spotify channel, where you can follow me on Spotify, called Dawn of the New Earth. All right, my friends, let's get started. So today we're answering the question, are vampires actually real? The answer is probably not what you think it is. We're going to be exploring several different ideas of vampires that exist today, and even doing a vampire test that you can take to see if you are actually a vampire. Now, the first kind of vampires that actually exist are probably the ones that you are most familiar with. Most of you probably know about these kinds of vampires. These are psychic vampires. Psychic vampires, you probably know them from the show What We Do in the Shadows. I haven't seen very many episodes of that, just a couple, but I saw the psychic vampire, and yes, he's very funny. He's probably my favorite character. Anyway, but one thing that you might not know about psychic vampires is that Anton LaVey, the founder of the Satanic Church and LaVeyan Satanism and author of the Satanic Bible, actually coined the term psychic vampire. At least he claims to have coined the term psychic vampire, and he discusses them in the Satanic Bible. So let's take a quick look at what Anton LaVey has to say about psychic vampires, and then we're going to move on and go deeper and deeper and deeper into this and see what else is out there. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to discussing this order of Asetian. It's very, very cool stuff. But let's first see what Anton LaVey just had to say about psychic vampires. LaVey says, and this is quoting from the Satanic Bible, "Many people who walk the earth practice the fine art of making others feel responsible and even indebted to them without cause. Satanism observes these leeches in their true light. Psychic vampires are individuals who drain others of their vital energy." So LaVeyan Satanism, or LaVey's view, is not very positive when it comes to vampires. Psychic vampires, again, it's very similar to the character in What We Do in the Shadows. LaVey writes, "Often the psychic vampire will use reverse psychology, saying, 'Oh, I couldn't ask you to do that,' and you in turn insist upon doing it. The psychic vampire never demands anything of you. The traditional way to banish a demon is to recognize it for what it is and exorcise it. Recognition of these modern-day demons and their methods is the only antidote for their devastating hold over you." So, not a big fan. LaVey is clearly not a fan, but this is a very negative interpretation of psychic vampires. We're going to see there's some other ways of looking at vampires that are actually, it's very empowering and very positive. This is clearly a negative interpretation. LaVey continues by saying, "It is extremely difficult for a person to learn to say no when all his life he has said yes. But unless he wants to constantly be taken advantage of, he must learn to say no. Do not waste your time with people who will ultimately destroy you, but concentrate instead on those who will appreciate your responsibility to them and likewise feel responsible to you. And if you are a psychic vampire, take heed. Beware of the Satanist. He is ready and willing to gleefully drive the proverbial stake through your heart. So, if you're a psychic vampire, better avoid Satanists, is what LeVay has to say. So, this is clearly a very, like I said, negative view of psychic vampires. And I think that's good advice. Obviously, don't, be driving stakes through anyone's heart. But there are many people who are like that character in What We Do in the Shadows, who are just constantly going to be draining your energy. And you have to learn how to say no and how to set boundaries. And if you can do that, you'll have a much healthier life, because there's people all over the place that are just trying to suck your energy and drain your energy. And hell, I live in LA, and it's, it's basically a whole city of psychic vampires. So let's move on. We're going to take a look at something known as Temple of the Vampire. So we're going to take a look at Temple of the Vampire, and then we're going to look at what I'm most interested in, which is the Kemetic Order of Aset-Ka. Now, we're going to take a look at these two different organizations, let's say, of vampires. One thing that I want to make clear before we do this is that I'm no vampire expert. I'm not like those kids in the Lost Boys who are vampire experts and you can hire them to go hunt. That's not me. However, I have studied the occult and esoterica for quite a long time. So the reason why I'm saying this is that we're going to be taking a look at some of these vampiric organizations. And I just want to put it forward that I'm no expert in vampirism, but I am pretty well-versed in esoterica and occultism. So I'm going to be taking a look at this stuff with you guys, and I'm going to be giving you my opinions from my vantage point of having studied esoterica and the occult, but not necessarily vampirism. So basically what I'm saying is I'm seeing a lot of this stuff for the first time with you guys, and I will be discussing it with you guys, not as an expert on vampires, but from an occult perspective and how I feel about these sorts of things. So let's take a look first. I'll bring it up on screen so that you guys can see. This is Temple of the Vampire. And right away it says, "Are you one of us? Take the vampire test to find out." And it's not working. Why is that not? There it is. Okay, so we're going to, take this vampire test. You can take it at home and see if you are one of the Temple of the Vampire. And also, let me tell you, I didn't pre-watch this. I watched like the first couple questions, but I didn't watch all the questions. So I'll be, pretty much reacting to this with you guys for the first time. Hopefully the audio is not coming through. So it's a video, but it doesn't have any visuals. It's just questions. So I'll read it for you guys. It says, "How do you agree with the views of real vampires?" Or how much do you agree with the view of real vampires? There are 5 levels of understanding that vampires share. Read each of the following statements and see if you agree with them. So this is supposedly going to tell you if you are a real vampire. And then after we take this test, I'm going to go a little further into this Temple of the Vampire organization. This is not, I want to be clear, this is not the Kemetic Order of Aset-Ka. That's what we're going to look at in just a bit. This one's first, though. I want to give you guys a little flavor of what's out there. So, question number 1, do you tend to think for yourself rather than accept the opinions of others? I certainly hope so. Do you tend to trust your own experience even when others disagree with you? Do you tend to expect that life is worth living rather than an endless burden to endure? If you won the lotto, would that probably make you feel happy instead of guilty? Do you tend to value your own life and those you love more than the lives of others? If you agreed with each of the first 5 statements, then you are operating from the same perspective as those who are seriously exploring the first level of the vampire religion. So, if you answered yes to questions 1 through 5, you are level 1 vampire. let's see. Let's continue and see if there's more levels to this, though. Our motto is test everything, believe nothing. Unlike other religions, we do not just believe or take things on faith. In this way, we build reliable knowledge of the existence of authentic vampirism. Now try level 2. All right, let's see level 2. Can you sometimes actually feel the emotional power of a large crowd? Have you, and by the way, if, like I said, I haven't pre-read these questions, so if some of them get weird or offensive, I didn't plan on it. So hopefully this is fine. Anyway, we're level 2. Level 2. Are you a level 2 vampire? Can you sometimes actually feel the emotional power of a large crowd? Have you ever somehow felt when someone was staring at you from behind? Have you ever felt more energized after being around someone who was very outgoing? More energized after being around someone who is very outgoing? Oh man, I'm usually drained. You tell me if I'm around people, whew, I'm going to get dry. I don't know if I'm going to make it to vampire level 2 because I'm certainly not. I guess that's where I guess if you're a vampire, you're supposed to like absorb their energy or something. Is that what they're getting at? Anyway, can you sometimes feel a tingling vibration in your fingers when you think about them? Not me, no. Do you think that there may be more to reality than science currently assumes there to be? Yes. So no tingly fingers for me, but I do agree. If you agreed with each of those 5 statements, then congratulations, you share many of the views of the members of the 2nd level of our religion. Damn, I don't think I passed level 2. Did you guys? Are you guys level 2? To attain this level, a member has tested and verified the existence of an invisible energy that all living things are constantly radiating. Vampires absorb this life force from living human beings. This action causes no harm and can potentially even stimulate healing. So it seems like what they're getting at the moment is that their idea of being a vampire involves understanding the energetic structure of reality and absorbing that energy to augment one's life, is so far what I'm getting from this. Now on to level 3. What did they say? There were 5 levels? All right, level 3. Let's see. Do you suspect that ESP might be real? Do you think that near-death experiences might be real? Do you suspect that out-of-body experiences might be real? Do you think that such psychic powers might possibly be better controlled or developed? Do you suppose that in all of history there might have been at least some individuals who might have already done so? So I believe that all these things are potentially real. I mean, I think near-death experiences are very real. ESP, I think is very rare and not very well controlled, but I think it's possible. OBEs, I think, are possibly real. Do I think that psychic powers can be better controlled or developed? Yeah, but not to the point where you're going around like bending metal and reading people's minds or anything like that. But I think you can enhance your intuition, absolutely, which would be a form of that. Do I suppose that in all of history there might have been at least some individuals who might have already done so? Yeah, clearly, but not like, again, not like doing miracles or reading minds or walking on water or anything like that, but having an extremely high level of intuition and reaching higher levels of consciousness. So let's see. Did we get to level 3? If you agreed with each of those 5 statements, that is excellent. You share many of the same views of the 3rd level of our religion, the vampire priesthood. Wow, if you made it to level 3, you're a vampire priest. 3rd level members are deeply involved with the effort to develop psychic powers and are also open to the possibility that vampires in the past may have successfully done so. Our priesthood members have validated the usefulness of assuming that such advanced vampires do exist, who we refer to as the undead gods. Our goal is to become as they are. Hopefully this goes a little faster because I want to get to the other topic. Now try level 4. All right, let's do level 4. Come on. What do we got here? Do you sometimes feel what you think can influence events around you? Do you suppose that sometimes dreams might be able to predict future events? Do you think there might have been more advanced technological civilizations in the past? Do you imagine that such advanced technologies would probably look like magic to us? Do you tend to agree that there may be more advanced, intelligent life on other worlds? These are all very speculative things. Anyway, you're kind of losing me here, Vampire Temple. If you agreed with each of these statements, you are operating from much the same perspective as members of our fourth level. Well, what is that? At the fourth level, our members apply themselves to testing and application of special technology that is usually viewed as magic by the outside world. As in everything we do not merely believe in such things. We base everything we do upon obtaining practical results. Now try level 5. Let's see. Do you feel there is a deeper part of your mind that can sometimes offer wise guidance? Have you ever felt a profound sense of connection to other living things? Have you experienced the feeling that somehow you could never really die? Do you sometimes have dreams that seem more real than waking life? Do you sometimes feel that there is more to reality than what we normally perceive? Well, if so, congratulations. It would seem that you are in agreement with our master adepts, the fifth and deepest level of the vampiric religion. Master adepts have become aware of and awakened to their immortal self, which we call the dragon. As a consequence of this awakening, adepts see the world and reality itself in an entirely different way. It is truly remarkable and unusual for someone to agree with so much of what we know to be true. What was the last thing they said? What we know to be true. There really remains only one question to ask. Drumroll, are you one of us? Oh, are you? How did you do? How did you do? What vampire level are you? Tell me in the chat. What level of vampire did you make it to? Okay, so, interesting, fine questions. But here's the thing. So if we take a look at the different elements on this website, there's really not much to it. If we look at a history, it's a very, very small history. If you look at their mission, it's very, very small. And if we take a look at their creed, all right, let's take a look at their creed. I am a vampire. I worship my ego and I worship my life, for I am the only God that is. So far, that's a very satanic type of statement. Worshipping the ego, worshiping my life, being the only God that is. Clearly, that's very different from the type of things that we teach, which is about connecting beyond the ego and transcending our human limitations to realize our divinity and actualize our inner star. I'm proud that I'm a predatory animal and I honor my animal instincts. Again, very satanic. I exalt my rational mind and hold no belief that is in defiance of reason, which is fine. I recognize the difference between the worlds of truth and fantasy. Good. I acknowledge the fact that survival is the highest law. Hard disagree with that. It should be about maximizing the quality of life for everyone. I acknowledge the powers of darkness to be hidden natural laws through which I work my magic. I know that my beliefs in ritual are fantasy, but the magic is real, and I respect and acknowledge the result of my magic. I realize there is no heaven and there is no hell, and I view death as the destroyer of life. Therefore, I will make the most of life here and now. I am a vampire. Bow down before me. Oh my. It seems just from this, I don't see much of a difference between this and Satanism. And again, if you take a look at just the different stuff in here, they have a shop and you can like sign up. You can like subscribe to activate and become a member. They have membership subscriptions and things like that, which is fine. But there's just not much here. There's not really anything new. It just seems like, watered down Satanism or just like a different spin on Satanism. So, my take on this, again, I'm no vampire expert. So I haven't studied their books or what do they have? Do they have a book? They have some literature, I guess. So I don't know. It doesn't strike me as particularly interesting. It seems pretty much like Satanism. However, that being said, let's turn to the Kemetic order of Aset Ka, which actually seems quite interesting. So the Kemetic order of Aset Ka, Kemetic has to do with Kemet, which means Egypt, and Aset refers to Isis, and Ka refers to here, let me bring it up on screen here. Ka refers to part of the Egyptian conception of the soul. So the Kemetic order of Aset Ka can be thought of as meaning something along the lines of the Egyptian order of the essence of Isis. And then, of course, we have here a very interesting symbol that I believe they call the dark mark, which is an Ankh, which represents eternal life and the unification of masculine and feminine elements. I love the Ankh. It's a fantastic symbol. So we have the unification of feminine and masculine. You can see the masculine in the form of a cross and the feminine in the form of this, teardrop circular shape. And then we have the wings, which generally, represent eternal life, and horns. We could also interpret the wings as being possibly the wings and the horns relating to a synthesis of dark and light, but I'm not sure. I haven't read a lot of their material, so I don't know if they do that or if they're just purely on the darker aspect of things. They seem like that they are more focused on the darker aspect, but I haven't actually read their material. But this is really cool. So listen to what it says here. It says, forget all you have learned and learn all you have forgotten. I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. See, right away, like with the other one, it all seemed pretty like it's stuff that I've heard before. It's in Satanism. It's very, very generic, very generic. This is just one sentence, and it's not, not anything mind-blowing, but right away it's like, oh, that's cool. I like that. Forget everything that you've learned and learn everything that you've forgotten. Plato said that all learning is actually remembering. And so that's cool. I like that. This is, the other one was more about like, oh, this is the only life we have, so make the most of this life. It's about the here and now, which is very much satanic, Levian Satanism. This seems already to be indicating more of a association with eternal life, which would be more associated with vampires, because vampires you associate with immortality. So again, right, like I'm not pretending to be an expert in vampirism, so I can't say this for sure, but I would imagine that immortality in a true vampiric order would be referencing the idea that when you realize that you are eternal, you become immortal. This is what Jesus was talking about in the Gospel of Thomas when he said, these are the secret teachings of Jesus. Whoever understands them will never die. And this is why in all, really grand initiatory systems, they talk about how it's about achieving immortality, which is about realizing that one is eternal. It's not being physically immortal. It's about realizing that one is eternal. So anyway, this already seems fairly interesting. So they have a couple different things. Let's take a look at their manifesto. So we took a look to contrast and compare. We took a look at the Temple of the Vampires manifesto, which seemed pretty much like Satanism. But let's take a look at theirs, the Asset Cause manifesto, to see what they have to say here. Let me just bring it up on my screen so I can actually see it. Just a moment. Where'd it go? Here we go. Okay. So let's take a look. The Kemetic Order of Aset, the Asetian manifesto. So what is the Asetian manifesto? To become an Asetian is to die and be reborn. So again, already I'm getting a feel that this particular group has much, and I don't want to be mean because I don't know anything about the Temple of Vampire. I don't know if they're scammers or they're super nice people or what. I can't say. But I will say that already it seems to me that this particular order has more occult knowledge and is more based in occult teachings. Because see, to become an Asetian is to die and be reborn. The other one was like, oh, this is the only life we have, make the most of it. I'm a vampire, bow down to me or something. This is to become an Asetian is to die and be reborn. And this is what, I talk about in Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, which is about how you have to destroy your old self so you are free to create your own self. It is that symbolic view of the dying and the dying God that rises again, the crucifixion of Christ, where the old is destroyed and the spiritual, and one is reborn as the immortal, as the spiritual. So that's very cool. Remember, always remember, be safe. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. I'm talking about the spirit or the soul here. You always want to make sure that your avatar and your body is very safe. Right? That should be obvious, but I want to make sure. So to become an Asetian is to die and be reborn, to forget all you have learned and learn all you have forgotten. We already looked at that. I thought that was very cool. To be an Asetian is to be blessed with everlasting love, is to be cursed by a never-ending thirst for perfection. And I'm reading a lot of this stuff for the first time with you guys, so I'm doing kind of like on-the-fly analysis. To be cursed with a never-ending thirst for perfection. See, I like this a lot more already than the idea of, this is the only life we have, so this is more of an eye to like the perfection of the soul, the transformation. So far, this is aligning very much with occult themes. An Asetian is a fierce warrior, a faithful lover, and an eternal concubine, having the power of the pharaoh, the discipline of the samurai, the knowledge of the wizard, and the commitment of the geisha. Really cool. This is showing me quite a powerful manipulation of archetypes, channeling different archetypes to become the best version of oneself, channeling archetypes of the pharaoh, the samurai, the wizard, the geisha into a singular force. Very cool. Kemet, or Egypt, is our holy land, the genesis of our immortal Ba. The Tao is knowledge. Power is through blood. So the Tao is knowledge, the Tao having to do with basically the energetic force of existence. That's cool. Power is through blood. I don't know precisely what that means. I couldn't say for sure what that's referencing. Hopefully that is symbolic for something else. Our Ka is sacred. So this is having to do with aspect of the soul. Our essence is the storm raindrops in the ocean of mankind, the wind that blow on their faces, and the quake that shake the very foundations of their ground. We are the children of the gods. We are the cursed ones and the blessed ones. We live in secret, we live in silence, and we live forever. So right away, I like this much better than the other one. This is seems very, very grounded in occult thought and occult teachings. So let's see what other stuff that they have on their site. Again, like I said, I'm looking at a lot of this stuff for the first time with you all. The Kemetic Order of Aset Ka. Asetianism, or how do they say it? Asetianism is the living culture of the Asetians. So this is their tradition. An ancient mystical tradition and initiatory system of magic. Its intricate pathways take the initiate through a journey of predatory spirituality. See, that's interesting. Predatory spirituality. I don't know what that refers to. So let's see if they explain what that means, because I certainly wouldn't think that predatory spirituality is such a good thing, but I don't know what their interpretation of that is. Self-discovery, great. Internal alchemy, that's awesome. So again, we're seeing some pretty high-level occult knowledge here. It's not just this seems like it has a lot of substance to it. And remember, again, I don't know much about this, so don't take this as an endorsement or anything. I'm just analyzing it as I go. Like I said, predatory spirituality. I don't know exactly what that means. It doesn't sound like a good thing, though. Focused on enlightenment, great. Evolution of the soul, great. Through the infinite gateways of wisdom, great. This old tradition relies on the awareness of subtle forces, the mastery of magic, and a profound understanding over the mysteries of life and death. Wielding the arts of energy manipulation, not only as a discipline and inner craft, but a true way of life. The path of Asetian spirituality is also strongly introspective. Very cool. Established from a framework of psychology, awesome, and magic. Originally developed by Aset in ancient Egypt and developed throughout the centuries by the Aset Ka, in a never-ending pursuit of growth, balanced impermanence, and elusive equilibrium. So one thing that I want to say is I think that they're claiming that they have like a lineage all the way to ancient Egypt. And I think I read that somewhere when I was briefly perusing this. I think that they say that. And that the Aset Kas basically like have existed throughout the centuries or whatever. Now, my what I would guess about this is, again, having to do with just my knowledge of studying occult societies and things like that, is they're probably being symbolic about this. The Aset Ka probably represents a way of thinking and a way of believing and a way of living that one, quote unquote, joins or becomes a part of when one begins to act in accordance with those ways of living, rather than it being like an actual secret thing that has existed throughout history. A lot of secret societies like do that to add to their legitimacy. They're like, oh, we've existed for thousands of years, or this particular god established our order, or whatever. And it's usually meant that's one thing that I don't. One of the many things that I'm not a super huge fan about on secret societies is that they do this thing where, oh, well, we're going to say that, let's say, this particular god established this order, but it's not really a lie because that archetype does influence the order, but they know very well that the people joining aren't going to know that. They're going to think that it was really established by a god, and then you're screwing with people in a way that I don't think is very moral or ethical. Anyway, I'm just guessing that, this association with, having existed for centuries is likely symbolic. Again, I'm doing on-the-fly analysis here. Although adamantly dangerous and potentially destructive, particularly for weaker minds, the shallow, egocentric, and self-centered, Asetianism is an inner art that enhances understanding of reality and existence, igniting dormant potential, developing newfound abilities, and unleashing mental clarity. Very cool. Love all that so far. Again, you can see the difference where the previous one was about, oh, worship the ego. We're all about the ego. And here it's saying that it will destroy weaker minds and those who are egocentric. So you can see this has more of a powerful, immortal, eternal, transcendent force than the other, which seemed pretty much like Satanism to me. Why is it potentially dangerous and destructive? I haven't read much about this order, but my guess would be that they probably work with a lot of shadow archetypes, being that they have a lot of dark imagery. And when you work with shadow archetypes, yeah, that can be quote unquote dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because you're working with the forces of the unconscious, and you want to make sure that you're doing that in a healthy way. Like if you start tapping into certain shadow aspects of yourself, for example, that might be, let's say, anger. And if you use anger incorrectly, you could fuck up your life or someone else's life. And this is why why I suggest always having a therapist of some kind, engaging in psychotherapy with a licensed therapist who can help one explore these aspects in a healthy way. Its committed study, practice, and unique process of organic initiation and continuous evolution are capable of balancing mind, body, and spirit, uniting them as vital layers of self in a symbiotic connection of oneness. So apparently they have something called the Asetian Bible, which I would actually be interested in reading. This pretty, seems interesting to me so far. The alchemical principles of duality are embraced and understood in Asetianism as the chaotic dance of opposite forces that ignite every aspect of becoming, the universal polarity found in all manifestations, from the laws of nature to the tiniest details. So very cool again, duality, the opposite dance of forces. I would assume that they would mean also uniting, not just embracing the principles of duality, but I would imagine that hopefully they mean uniting as well, because if they have a knowledge of alchemy, which it seems like they do, they would know that that's an extremely important part of the process. And again, we can see this principle in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus was a vampire. In the Gospel of Thomas, when Jesus, that's the one where it says, if you understand these secret teachings, you will never die. Jesus says, when you make the above like the below, the inner like the outer, the male like the female, and the female like the male, all united into a single one, then you will enter the kingdom. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially talking about the balance and unity of all opposites together to reach a unified state. So let's see. I'm just trying to, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Asetianism is independent of belief or faith, and is not restricted by mental conditioning, social stigma, or cultural paradigms. It's not a religion, cult, or dogma. It's a way of life. Failing to realize this represents one step away from the truth. The transformational powers of death manifested through the perceptual cycle of rebirth. All right, so it looks like they believe in reincarnation, and that death is a transformative process because it leads to cycles of rebirth. And I'm assuming that they're saying that these cycles of rebirth go towards the development and evolution of the soul, where reincarnation is explored not as theory, but unveiled with undeniable proof through the natural ladder of initiation that ignites ultimate understanding. So let's see. Let's see what else they have on the site. Let's see, manifesto, remarks, let's see the order. Okay, let's take a look at the order itself. The Order of Aset Ka is a spiritual society and metaphysical order of mysteries that was founded in Kemet by Her Highness Aset during a time the ancients described as the Tepi. Historically, the word Kemet translates the meaning of black land in ancient Egyptian, referring to the realm of the Asetian Empire around the shores of the Nile, where the striking dark color of the fertile soil in contrast with the pale desert inspired such a name. Let's see. So they are claiming a lineage to ancient Egypt, apparently founded by Aset or Isis. Entrusted with the guardianship of the teachings of Aset, often operating in secrecy and wielding the tools of silence, but always striving for the safekeeping of her unique knowledge and spiritual tradition, the order nurtures the enduring flame of the violet path throughout the ages as unseen swords of darkness committed to shielding the truth and enforcing honor. So, again, my opinion of this is that this is likely a story composed to add to the lore of this particular group, and it's symbolic. You know, it's whoever, like I said before, whoever takes part in the system can be symbolically a part of this order that has existed throughout centuries, meaning that this way of thinking has been present that people could tap into. You know, again, not an expert on the Aset Ka, but I doubt that they really, you know, literally existed throughout centuries as a secret group or something. Let's see. The essence behind the Aset Ka is not found in buildings or objects. The mysteries, culture, and wisdom of the Asetians are tied to intricate gateways of inner growth and profound initiations that can only align with the cosmos through unrelenting honesty, being unveiled to the humble and worthy. The legacy of Aset is a path of lifetimes, uncovered only through the ladder of spiritual evolution. That's great. Although undeniably elitist and secretive, those characteristics are not established from a mundane concept of superiority, but designed as a natural shield from those who seek to exploit and deface or desire power. See, this is the thing that I have a problem with secret societies. They're saying our system is elitist and secretive, but not because we think we're superior, but to shield away from those who would exploit the system or deface the system or desire power. And I've talked about this before, how I think that secrecy was necessary in the past when you faced a lot of persecution from the church or whoever. These days, I don't think it's necessary. And this idea of, oh, well, we're protecting it because people will deface it or they'll have the desire for power. In my opinion, using so much secrecy is actually what will end up perverting many of these systems and having people who desire for power. Because if you veil your system in all this secrecy, and this doesn't just apply to this system, but this is my opinion for any system that heavily relies on secrecy. If you put so much secrecy around your system, what's going to happen is you're going to get people that want to know the secret, not people who are really interested. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, but I think a large chunk of people aren't going to be truly interested in developing the self. They're going to be like, ooh, I want to know the secret and I want to know the power. So you're going to attract exactly the kind of people that you're saying that you don't want. You're going to want people who want power, who want to know secrets. And then usually if they join and they start rising up in ranks, well, then they do start to get power. And then they're the ones that don't have a very healthy mindset. So they can start manipulating others or even twisting the system or adding in manipulative elements. So I don't think it's healthy. And I don't think that it's something that we need to do anymore. I think that this information, it's about time, is available to anyone and open to anyone and put forward in an accessible manner. That's my opinion. People can do what they want, of course, but I always just caution, be very careful with systems that have a lot of secrecy, because they can, not all of them, but they can have manipulative elements to them. Ultimately, the aged locks and weathered doors of the Aset Ka cannot be broken by force, deceit, or desire, and its path only appears to those who are loyal and true. As for everyone else, the order will never exist. So let's see what else. Is there anything else that I can check out here? The Asetians, vampirism. All right, let's take a look at vampirism. So the mysteries of vampirism present a real but often misunderstood layer of the Asetian nature. The Asetians were described by the ancient mystics as primordial vampires, the firstborn of a timeless, immortal kin, tracing their roots and ancestral genesis throughout the centuries to a lost empire that predates the pharaonic dynasties of ancient Egypt. A time of legend and magic, the Asetians were given life by the essence of Aset and her breath of creation, being capable of touching deeply into the psyche and soul of humanity. Inhuman both in mind and spirit, the reality of these beings transcend that of mundane understanding and surpasses any simple definition. Being unrestricted from the terminologies of society and representing infinitely more than the word vampire can convey. In the subject of vampirism, it's crucial to segregate occult reality and its scholarly fields of study from fantasy or other cultural misappropriation and roleplay disseminated by modern subcultures that do not present in any way a serious approach to this branch of spirituality explored with the Aset Ka. And this is part of the thing, they do seem like a very serious order with deeply rooted occult principles that are very different than, some people that might just call themselves vampires because they think it sounds cool or whatever. And hey, no offense to any, do what you want. Of course, live life any way you want, as long as everything is consensual and safe and all that, obviously. But I see what they're saying, in that they want to make it differentiate themselves. Hey, this isn't about role playing or anything like that. We are a serious order that is tapping into metaphysical forces. And what they're likely doing is using the vampire as an archetype to work with, right? So for example, immortality is part of the vampiric archetype, which has to do with realizing that one is eternal and having, successions of cycles of birth and rebirth. Just for example, when I say we are gods, and when we realize we are gods, we become immortal because we realize that we are eternal, again, as a soul, not physically. It seems as though, I would guess, that they're doing the same thing here, but instead of using the archetype of deity, they're using the archetype of vampire. Oh, when one becomes an immortal vampiric being when they realize that they are eternal. That's what I'm guessing that they would be doing here. To mingle the ignorance found in pop culture with the wisdom of occult societies unveils an obvious path of misunderstanding. I agree. Real vampires are not defined by the elements found in fiction, mythology, and lore. They are not cursed, broken, or demonic parasites. Vampirism is a multi-layered complexity. In its multi-layered complexity, is ultimately bound to a definitive condition of the soul. All right, so it has to do with the condition of the soul, is what they're saying. In terms of spirituality, such notion can be described as an inhuman soul within a human body, an immortal spirit in a mortal shell. See, exactly. This is what I was referring to before. Very cool. Basically talking about how our souls, what we really are, are not human. We are eternal beings of frequency and energy, and we are operating this particular avatar to interact with this particular realm. And so we are an immortal spirit in a mortal shell. Vampirism is oftentimes tied to the infamous arts of draining vital force. All right, so let's see how they interpret this. The energy of the living, known as Ka in ancient Egyptian. However, the ability to draw energy from others is not enough to describe a living vampire, as those techniques and practices, sometimes erroneously tied exclusively to vampirism, can be practiced by anyone with knowledge of advanced metaphysics. Any human with proper training can summon subtle forces, interact with the elements, and manipulate energy, draining it for personal empowerment. That does not make them vampires, but simply humans practicing the arts of vampirism. So a common misconception, sometimes perpetuated by, I'm still curious though, because they do mention draining energy. So I wonder if because remember in the beginning, they said something about predatory spirituality. That's kind of a little bit of a red flag for me. Like what is, that doesn't sound too good. I don't, they haven't defined what that is yet, but doesn't sound too good. And so, couple that with them talking a little bit about the ability to drain energy. I'm curious. Remember, I'm no expert in this system. I'm curious as to what that would refer to and where that's going. A common misconception, sometimes perpetuated by popular ignorance or those less knowledgeable of the nature of vampirism and its associated gnosis, cool, is to describe vampires through a broken energy system. Theories of wounded souls, metaphysical handicaps, and inefficient subtle bodies are possible under the study of subtle anatomy, but they don't describe or relate with the nature of a vampire. Let's see. Vampires are not broken, diseased, or limited. They are evolved spirits of oneness and completeness. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that they're doing exactly what I described before. Instead of using, they're using an archetypal symbol to represent the true self. So rather than, referring to their true self as an angel or a god or whatever you like to refer, archetypally associate with your true self, it seems as though they're using the archetype of the vampire. A vampire is not broken, diseased, or limited. They are evolved spirits of oneness and completeness, mastering the subtle arts of magic, perpetually seeking wisdom and igniting their latent abilities that can be enhanced with the blood of life. What does that mean? The vibrational essence of vital force. So I would still see that could go either way. It could go in symbolically we mean that we are working with the life energy of reality, and that's fine. But if it goes in a darker direction, like we are doing it, because there's a way to do these things in a negative way where you're augmenting the self at the expense of others. And I've talked about this before, is that when you're working with energy or whatnot, you want to, if you're going to augment yourself, you want to do so not at the expense of others. You want to do it through fortifying your own self. So I guess they've used certain words that raise a little bit of red flags for me that I would want a clearer definition on. Predator spirituality, enhanced with the blood of life, using the vibrational essence of vital force. I would want to know if they do this in a way that is at the expense of others or not. Hopefully not, but there are definitely some societies and orders that do that. And usually they're the ones who emphasize darker archetypes. So I don't know, but that's something that I would like to, that's something that I would flag in my mind of, let's figure out what their stance is on that. Asetians should never be confused with humans bearing a damaged self or a broken energy system, as they are precisely the opposite. When studying the obscure practices of vampirism, both in the fields of metaphysics and spirituality, a recurrent theme entwined within the predatory nature. Oh, here we go. Okay. A recurrent theme entwined with the predatory nature of this tradition is that of vampiric feeding, the master draining of vital life force. Okay. Here's where we're getting into what we need to know. The adopted terminologies are varied and prevalent. Oh, well, actually, hold on. Often shrouded in confusion and misunderstanding, it can be found in pop culture in an attempt to categorize and label vampires according to feeding and relating techniques. The adopted terminologies are varied, with prevalent descriptions such as the psychic vampire, based on metaphysical draining and energy mastery, feasting on the blood of the living, and even more recently, concepts such as the hybrid appeared attempted to describe vampires that feed on energy and blood. All of these descriptions are fictitious and ultimately flawed, as vampires cannot be categorized by feeding practices or restricted to such techniques, holding no acceptance or credibility in the scholarly circles that dictate to such study. To limit, so they're basically saying they're not psychic vampires and they don't drink blood, from what I understand so far. But I want to know how they do define feeding, though. To limit the incredibly convoluted nature of a vampire to such an elemental aspect would be nonsensical, raising the misguided notion that those are valid vampire types. A real vampire is not confined to a single technique or approach to feeding, being capable of draining vital force through different methods and practices, such as touch, blood, sexuality, or subtly through energy manipulation. Okay, so apparently maybe now that they're saying that they do use blood. So they're listing different methods, including touch, blood, sexuality, or energy manipulation. Okay, so see these are now more things that would go in the list of, oh, let's figure out what they mean by that. What are they talking about here? The adopted methods of feeding are tied to different variables such as subtle metabolism, but they are also a reflection of personal preference. What a vampire genuinely craves is ka, the raw energy that manifests the essence of life. When released by augmented emotion, a drop of blood, an echo of physical contact, the projection of psychological dominion, or the release of an intense orgasm. Okay, so far, this is still pretty, yeah. So this is rooted in occultism and magic, where when you are doing certain rituals, yeah, there are some magicians who will use orgasm to enhance it, because you're trying to get into like an excited state. Excited as in not like necessarily horny, but excited as in, excited. A state of excitement. Excitation. And yeah, you can use some people use orgasm. And yeah, I mean, I guess some people, you can use blood because that can put you in a certain mindset of like, ooh, wow, this is really serious. Look, I'm using blood. This is really serious. I don't recommend this, by the way. Don't do anything that will hurt yourself or others. I'm very against, especially anything that would hurt others. But yeah, just always everything you need to do, make sure it's safe and consensual. You don't need to be running around draining blood or anything. That is not necessary. However, no vampire can be described based on abilities or practices as those are limited, incomplete, and bound to inner will. So what I want to know is, because they're pretty much describing practices that are done in the occult through their archetype of the vampire, through that mythos, through that story. But I think still the major question that I have, because they're talking about energy manipulation and draining of energy, I want to know if, one, is it consensual? And two, is it at the expense of others or not? That's the major question. Is it at the expense of others? Because that's when, in my opinion, that's not a good thing. And so far they've been pretty kind of ambiguous about it. More than just predator. Well, I mean, when you call yourself predatory spirituality, that certainly does raise a red flag. More than just predators of life and death, the Asetians are beings of intense spirituality, passionate learning, a noble sense of loyalty, and a paramount understanding of the foundations of the universe. Their nature manifests in the realm of endless possibility, and to limit that understanding to such smaller aspects would be an exercise of a lesser mind. Interesting. So my view, so we looked at Satanism and the psychic vampires, and that's pretty typical. I think most of us have heard of psychic vampires, especially because of what we do in the shadows. We know about that. Then that other one we looked at, the Temple of Vampire, Doesn't seem really, I didn't see anything that was different than Satanism in it. It didn't really seem like there was too much there. This, however, seems very deep, with a very strong understanding of the occult and magic and archetype manipulation. They have quite a lot of books, at least 4 I see here, 4 books, which I would be interested in reading, to be honest. This is something that piques my interest as, I'm curious what actually is here, because it seems interesting to me. So I would say that this seems likely to be a real order. I don't know if they necessarily have physical locations, but real as in it is a system that's not just like some thing that's trying to get your money or something. It looks like a legit occult system. And when I say legit, I don't mean like I vouch for it or that it's good. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's not the website that some random person threw up because they want you to join their membership and give you their money or something. They seem like that they have real roots of deep occult knowledge. So very interesting. And I would be interested in learning more about them. I would say that there are some things in here that definitely raise some red flags that I want to know more about what they mean. I want to know more about what they mean by predatory spirituality. I want to know more about their ideas on energy draining, if they're doing it at the expense of others, or if they're just using that as a metaphor, or if they actually. So yeah, there's some things out there. So that being said, I want to remind you guys, be very careful. You know, don't just go out there joining this stuff because it sounds cool or looks cool, or you want to be a vampire or something. This is serious stuff. These are serious forces. These people like this obviously know how to manipulate thought, manipulate the mind. And I don't know, disclaimer, I'm not saying one way or the other. I don't know anything about this. This is just a general statement of be careful. Have your wits about you. This isn't stuff to just like play around with. But anyways, very interesting. I would be curious to learn more about this. By the way, if you want to know more about the Kemetic Order of Aset Ka, let me know. Tell me in the comments, because if you do want to know more about it, I would happily do research on them, research their books, research their material, and maybe we can go deeper and see what exactly they're about in a much more deep way. So tell me in the comments if you want to know more about it. By the way, in our members only video that we're having right after this, we will read some of the passages from the Asetian Bible. So in the members only stream, we'll be reading some passages from the Asetian Bible, which should be very interesting. But yes, tell me what you thought. Tell me your comments. I'm very interested. And happy Halloween, everyone. It is Halloween. And I want to remind you that my book is available for pre-order right now, Psychogenesis. And my first book is available to buy right now, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. The audiobook is available as well. Links for all those things are in the description, as well as the link to my Spotify channel, Dawn of the New Earth, where you can find, these in podcast format. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports. If you want to help out my channel, become a member to get access to members only videos. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you all, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nucelina, Christopher, Dallas, Digital Tech, Seaweed, David, and 2 of our newest supporters, LaDonna and Grace. And everyone else, thank you very much.